Yeah, hi there. And these comments, I'm going to just use your first name, Sasa. And you have some questions about the independent writing task. You say, as we are limited by the time, 30 minutes, including outline, writing, proofreading, and editing, it is so logical that the TOEFL graders cannot expect from us to get real and full academic essays in such a short period of time. To have a complete academic essay, we need much more time to use dictionaries, possibly to have assistance of native English speakers to finally polish our writing. So then your question is, for this reason, I would like to know how much intellectual should be an essay, having in mind that we write in test circumstances that definitely contradict the real conditions under which students work their essay. To be honest, I'm afraid that many of the TOEFL essays could remind an essay from primary school and what the parameters to say that the essay sounds as academic work. You say, to give an example of the essay written under simulation of TOEFL circumstances, I'd like to hear your opinion. Does it correlate with an academic structure of an opinion presentation? And how would you say remark it. I'm going to say, how would you score it or mark it? Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not in the business of reading and scoring everybody's essays who send them to me by email. Remember that I have an online course. That's exactly what I do in that course. I teach over 120 students a month, so I need to focus my energy on grading the writing practice tests that they submit. So I'm going to pass on reading and scoring your essay. If you are one of my students, or if you do join my course, I will be more than happy to give you comments. Remember that the writing section of my course has 40 different independent writing practice tests. I have 43 integrated writing practice tests. So you have time to solve all the problems you might have in terms of completing these responses in the 30-minute or the 20-minute time limits. All right, but to answer your question about, I think part of your question is this. How much are we expected to do in the 30 minutes given the time limit? How academic should it be, right? Now, to answer your question, Sasa, I'm going to go to the independent writing rubrics that the TOEFL uses in order to score your response. So let's see exactly what it is that you need to do in those 30 minutes. Okay, first of all, you need to directly and effectively address the topic and the task of the writing assignment. So that's number one. Whatever the question is, you need to directly answer that question. Now, number two, you want to make sure that your essay is organized. It's well developed using clearly appropriate examples and details, right? So everything needs to connect together. For example, you have a good introduction. I recommend approximately 100 words in the introduction. Then you have your thesis. And then you have your topic statements or topic sentences in the body paragraphs of your response, and then you have your details. So there needs to be a united feeling with all that, with the thesis, topic sentences, and the details. Now there should be progression of ideas also. What does that mean? It means you have a main point, you state that in your thesis. You have a support point, you state that in the topic sentences of your body paragraphs, and then you have details. So really, Sasa, you need to have main, support, and details. You need to be able to write at 3 coherent layers of meaning. Now, you have to have good grammar and pretty good writing proficiency, which means you have to have good sentence variety, you have to have appropriate word choice, natural sounding language, even though you'll have some minor vocabulary and grammatical errors. If you can do those things in the 30 minutes, you're going to get a score of about 30 out of 30 or 5.5 out of 5. So it doesn't have to be perfect. My recommendation is this. It takes practice, but you want to write approximately 350 to 450 words in those 30 minutes. making sure you directly answer the question, you have a good organization with supporting detail, right, and you're using correct, for the most part, correct grammar, and you have good sentence variety and so on. So if you can do that, you will be able to get a good score. Now, I know what you're saying. You say, hey, Michael, now, it's not possible for me to do all that, but it is. And I have students. I have students who meet exactly those requirements every month. One of my students, Sasa, he practiced at my course for 2.5 months, and guess what? His writing score went from 22 points out of 30 all the way to 29. How did he do that? He completed over 30 independent and integrated writing practice tests at my website. He completed practice tests over and over and over. What does that mean? He got to the point where he could write, believe it or not, almost 500 words in 30 minutes. No joke. He practiced and he was able to improve his writing, his organization, his development, his sentence style through practice. He did it. And you can do it too. Now, it's kind of like driving a car. Think of it like this, Sasa. When you first drive a car for the first time or the first few times, there's a lot of things that you have to think about. You think about looking in the rear view or the side view mirrors. You think about engaging into drive or reverse. You think about using the steering wheel, using the blinker switches indicating a left or right turn. There's a lot of things you have to think about in order to effectively drive a car, right? In the beginning, it seems overwhelming. Like driving a car, when you're completing one of these independent or integrated writing tasks for the TOEFL IBT, there are a lot of things that you have to do in order to score high. But if you practice it over and over and over a 2 or 3 month period, you get to the point where you're doing all of these things automatically without much thought. See what I'm saying? So it gets easier by practice. So those are my comments to your particular question. So anyway, I'd love to have you start posting. If you want to start posting responses to my practice test on my website, you can do that. You will need to join my course before you can do that. I have a teaching assistant whose sole responsibility is to read, comment, and score all of your independent and integrated writing practice tests. My job, what I do is I typically will listen to your pronunciation, speaking, independent integrated speaking practice tests, and I'll give you feedback in those areas. But you just got to hang in there. Now, one of the things you have to, in order to answer one of your questions, you say, does it correlate with an academic structure? I think the writing that you're doing for the TOEFL, it is academic, but it doesn't have exactly the same polish and the same depth as out-of-class type writing assignments. Now, one thing that you said, where is it? Something I might slightly disagree with. You say that it says, the way that we write in test circumstances definitely contradicts the real conditions under which students work their essays. Maybe, maybe not. Now, why do I say that? Some professors at the university level, they require students to complete essays in class. I do. I have my students. I'm a professor at California State University, San Bernardino, and I do give my students writing assignments in class that they have to complete before the end of class. So they are working under time constraints. Put it another way. What if your professor, let's say you're in a history class and your professor is asking you, Sasa, specifically a question. You have to be able to respond immediately without much thought. You have to be able to organize and develop your response without much thinking, right? So if you can respond to an essay, in a 30-minute period, and you can organize, develop, and those ideas, it will be much easier for you when you get into positions in a university or professional setting, in which case you have to respond to certain questions almost immediately. Or put another way, how about this? What if you're in a job and your supervisor says, I need a report about some product that we might consider using. Can you give me a report in an hour or two? Your boss is not going to give you 2 or 3 weeks to put together your ideas. Sometimes the boss needs that information very quickly. So again, I think that sometimes, not always, but sometimes the timed essay does reflect what's called real conditions. Real university conditions or real conditions in the workplace. Because you're learning how to think and organize quickly. And I think that's a good skill for any student or any employee to have. You see what I'm saying? Anyway, thank you very much for your comments, and all the best to your high-scoring writing success.